Hey, everybody. It's your boy DJ Vader. We're back at it again today with Mental Health Mondays, but as you guys can see, it is Tuesday. I needed to kind of take a day for myself yesterday, um, because here's the thing, mental health doesn't follow a schedule. We're always dealing with our own situations and stuff like that. So, Um, I know you guys are probably used to seeing this on Mondays, but today we're gonna do it on a Tuesday. That's okay. Um, but I'm gonna open this segment today with a few phrases you might know or that you may hear kind of in your head, kind of playing over on repeat every now and then, like words like "you should be further by now," or "you're behind," or "you're doing too much," or "not enough," and somehow everyone else seems to have it figured out. Um, if that sounded familiar, tonight's episode is for you because that voice is more common than we think, and it's exactly what we're talking about today. Um, so, welcome back, guys. Like I said, to Mental Health Monday. This space is about honest conversations, real emotions, and learning how to live with our minds instead of fighting them. Um, I'm not a mental health professional, just someone learning out loud and holding space. Um, Today, we're talking about what happens when your inner voice turns against you and how we begin to not necessarily silence it, but basically take control of what that voice is telling us. Um, the phrase I'm going to use is reclaiming the narrative. Shabong, thank you for the heart me. Um, Before we go any deeper into that, though, I want us to pause for a moment and kind of check in with ourselves. Um, just kind of, finish this sentence in your head. Like, lately, my inner voice keeps saying blank. Like, lately, mine's been saying, hey, don't mess this up, especially when I'm trying something new. Um, and what I've noticed is that it shows up right when I fully like am invested in something. Like if there's a deep connection, like if I really care strongly about something, not when I'm checked out. It's kind of like the loudest at the start, at the beginning. That's when we're filled with uncertainty or I don't have proof that this is going to be okay. That voice kind of it's not trying to sabotage me per se, but it's trying to keep me safe. But it ends up creating pressure instead of clarity. So when I notice that voice saying, hey, bro, don't mess this up, I try to pause and I ask what it's actually reacting to. Um, Most of the time, it's not about the situation in front of me. It's usually something along the lines of uncertainty, or just kind of stepping into a situation that doesn't have any guarantees. And that's when I realized this isn't just my experience. We all have some version of this voice that shows up when we're vulnerable or trying to grow. So let's zoom out for a second and talk about what this inner voice actually sounds like for you and where it got its voice, you know? So I would say something along the lines of on a scale of 1 to 10, how loud would you say, and you guys are more than welcome to join up in boxes if you want to discuss this, kind of like what would you guys say your inner voice kind of sounds like? Is it critical? Is it supportive? I mean, these are the like how loud would you say that voice is on a scale of 1 to 10? Can you adjust the dial? Would it be 1 to 10? Um, I'm going to say today I'm around a five. Um, that voice is always present, um, but it's not like deafening, if you will. It's kind of like low level commentary, if you will, kind of like when you're watching something in the background, you just kind of can hear it, but you're not actively listening to it. Um, it's like I could I could function, but I can tell that my system isn't fully relaxed. Like I'm still kind of there's a voice just all the time in our heads. And when it's at a five, that's usually my cue to slow things down. Um, because when the volume starts creeping up, it's kind of like, hey, let's it helps to slow things. Good afternoon, Geeta. How are you? Welcome in today to Mental Health Mondays on a Tuesday. Um, but it helps to slow things down before we try to fix anything, right? So let's try to make this simple. Let's just think about one thought that keeps popping up in our heads. Nothing dramatic, just something familiar, like just that persistent thought that we have in our heads. And we're going to pick one, and are we going to just ask it a simple question? Well, like we're kind of having an interview with this voice. We'll say, um, is it a fact or a feeling? Um, or would I say this to someone that I care about? Um, or what's a more neutral version of this voice that's currently in my head? So instead of saying things like, or feeling like, hey, I'm behind, I would say, I'm moving at my own pace. Hey, Ravi, thank you for the heart me, bro. You're more than welcome to join in a box, buddy. Welcome in today to Mental Health Monday, buddy. Like I mentioned, today's topic is when your inner voice starts turning against you.
What's up? What's going on, twin?
What's going on, man?
Hey guys, hey Gita, hey Siobhan.
Totally twinning over here, bro.
Yeah, bro. Let me go on mute so you can continue.
Okay. Um, so, instead of saying things like, I'm behind, I use phrases like um I'm moving at my own pace, or and it's not generally just a way to put a positive spin on it. It's usually um something that it's a conditioned response. So a lot of what I talk about uh in still standing. Hold on, gonna go ahead and uh ooh, okay, it's gonna appear backwards for you guys, but that's okay. Um, what I mentioned in still standing, a lot of the messages in still standing come from realizing that surviving, healing, and rebuilding don't necessarily follow a timeline. Um, Progress happens at its own pace. Sometimes just the fact that we're continuing what we're doing is all that matters. So when that feeling of I'm behind or that thought that I'm behind shows up, uh, I remind myself that I'm still standing, and that means I'm still moving, even if it doesn't necessarily look the way I thought it would. Um, and similar practices like that. If that kind of helps even a little, just go ahead, drop down in the comments below a little heart emoji. And when I say a little, I really mean it. Like even a 1% shift matters. We're not trying to flip a switch or fix everything right now. We're just creating a little bit more space between us and the noise. Basically, even if it doesn't help, that's okay too. We're just showing up. Sometimes just showing up is half the battle. You know, so Ravi, I'd like to ask you if there's moments where you feel that your inner voice kind of starts to kind of conflict with you a little bit.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, sometimes it depends on the situation, and like I start listening to my inner voice more. like for the past couple of years, like because I used to have that issue where I start to I usually doubted it, but now I start to listen to that inner voice because that intuition has proven time after time to be something that guided me in the right way. So basically, these days it's like if some like if I'm going to go somewhere or something, say, hey, don't go here. Something. I'm listening to that inner voice because it's like I call it. It's like God speaking to you. It's just
I
my
agree.
interpretation of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I feel that when you do that, it's like and situations that I've ignored it, and it's not like really bad consequences, but it could have gotten to that point. And
right.
after that, I started listening. I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna fight you anymore. I'm listening to you. So
I agree.
yeah.
I agree. And it's moments like that. They're small, but they're powerful. Because they remind us that we can pause,
Hmm.
even when our thoughts feel loud. Right, Siobhan, you got
Yeah.
to listen to your
Sure.
head.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that brings us right into today's topic because a lot of the struggle isn't what's happening around us, it's the voice inside our head responding to it. So let's talk about what happens when that inner voice stops being supportive and starts working against us. And I'm going to use the term reclaiming the narrative because we don't want this voice to define what we're going to do. We just want to give it like the Cliff's Notes version and say, this is how I feel this is going to go. Then you let your own interactions support it. Um, so it's basically like the inner voice in our head often kind of gets there as a form of protection. It's like the problem kind of starts when it keeps running. Like it's like you just kind of hear that constant drone. So let's open this up a little bit. It'd be like, what does your inner voice sound like when you're stressed? Does it sound like just angry buzzing, like wasps, drones, or anything like that, or like does it sound like you, or does it sound like someone from your past? It's generally something or someone that we came across that was very either critical of what we were doing or something. Um, and what does it usually criticize first? So I leave that open to discussion if you guys want to chime in. Gita says, what does Gita said? Right now I can listen to my head. Yeah. So I mean, it's like, what are you hearing inside your head? What is the, I guess, persistent track that we hear? Like we have those earworms. Like if it's a really good music, we hear that vibe and it's like we could just listen to it on repeat. We call them uh, vocal stems, right? I mean, we have some of those, like, but in this case, how would that apply to the inner voice? What's your thoughts on that, Ravi?
Um, it's like when like in a stressful situation, I think I get like conflicting when it comes to that, and it's kind of like past and present kind of thing goes on with when the thing, but it's like that's where I do like a meditation type of thing, where I sit down and listen to the quietness or the silence to
Mm-hmm.
to actually get myself back in check because that's because it's like it's kind of like you're doubting yourself with those two voices. It's like that I wouldn't say the devil and angel, but I would say it's kind of like both voices are telling you, no, do this, and it's like, bro, I'm stuck in the middle, like I'm gonna go crazy. So it's kind of like you need to have that moment where you sit and be at peace or something. Don't be around people because that's like it affects you. Like when people start to talk and all that stuff, it's like so you give yourself that time to have that moment of peace and try to find, like, hey, this is what I'm concentrating on. This is what I need to get done. And sometimes you do a little prayer as well. It's like, God, what's
Lovey,
next?
welcome in. Hope you're
Um,
doing well.
and yeah, so it's kind of like a mix of meditation and prayer at the same time. So for me, that often works. I don't say 90%, but sometimes it's like depending on the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of in the similar situation. It's like when I'm stressed, my inner voice sounds very rushed and impatient. It's almost like
Hmm. Hmm.
it stops being curious and starts being very critical. It's like everything needs to
Yeah.
happen right there. It's like urgent. Like I'm late to something, even if I can't explain where I'm going. Um,
Yeah.
and honestly, it doesn't always sound like me. It just sounds like pressure that I've picked up along the way. These are expectations, comparisons, voices that taught me that I had to be productive, successful, or figured out just to be okay. Um,
Yeah.
and
And
I've
sometimes,
noticed,
sometimes we get
yeah,
doubted where
yeah,
are we listening to the voices? Yes, of course, but it's like it's not those voices like like where it's telling us the dog did it. The dog is telling me to do it. Like Son of Sam kind of voices. It's
exactly,
like it's just so just to make it clear, like who's listening on the FYP, who's in the thing. It's not one of those voices. So we're not
right,
listening
right.
to something. Yeah, bro. Let me go
It's
on mute
it's
again.
it.
Let you.
So no, that's a very valid point because usually the first thing that this voice is criticizing is going to be progress, not necessarily how much effort that you've put in or the timing. It's just, well, actually, more so the timing. It's going to be like, hey, you should be further along, uh, especially when we're scrolling, right? We look at people doing this or whatever. We compare our paths to someone else's, or we forget how much rebuilding we've already done. That voice doesn't acknowledge survival or healing. It only kind of puts milestones. It's like if you're on a trail, you're passing mile marker number 5, and you're like, all right, I should be further along by now. I normally walk at a 28-minute per mile pace. Um, so, and this especially shows up, like I said, when we're, as we say, doom scrolling on here or hearing what everyone else is doing. You know, it doesn't mean that we're behind. It just means that we're measuring ourselves against the wrong clock. I mean, does anybody ever feel like their inner voice rushes them instead of supporting them? Guys, go ahead, drop your comments down below. Shanti says, I'm so bad at comparing myself to others that I forget how far I've come. That is a very valid point. That's exactly what that critical voice kind of says. It's almost like, hey, look at this, look at so and so. You should be at this point too, based on where things are going. And if you're not there, then it becomes very, thank you for the follow, Shanti. Um, this becomes very, we become very overcritical then as a result. Um, and once we notice these patterns that these the voices rushing you and fixating on timing, just kind of, to me, I started thinking like that voice didn't just appear out of nowhere. It had to have come from somewhere. So before we talk about how to quiet it or respond differently, we have to kind of understand where it comes from and why it shows up when we're under stress. For me, um, that would be like, hey, when I'm stepping back from something, this voice is saying, you're quitting. But when I really sit with it, um, I realize that the voice is kind of saying, we're not afraid to fail. We're afraid that people are going to judge. Shanti says, but then how do we deal with people in our lives who are vocally comparing where we are to them? Yeah, that's a very, you hit it on the nail with that one because it's everything is always going to be a comparison, unfortunately. But that's part of the grounding that Ravi mentioned is we have to look at our surroundings and we have to kind of just we have to look at everything in the now. Um, it's yes, Siobhan, very much. Judgment affects our actions. It's very much that fear of judgment that that kind of overrides our actions. That voice then basically starts supporting all of our inner doubts, self doubts, and then it reflects in our behavior. We either then become disconnected or we kind of start panicking. I mean, there's two things, right? You can either the anxiety kicks in or it's just everything just well, the simplest thing I can say, that visual that comes to my head when it was an episode of SpongeBob, right, where he's like, "We forgot the name." It's like that this simple thing, like he is so fixated on being a fine diner in that episode, right? It's like you just empty all of your thoughts and you see that little scramble, whatever. But yeah, that's kind of like the inner voice is just fixated on one thing. It's just going to always be super critical, and it's gonna initially be on our sides, but then it's gonna be like, hey, yo, bro, you really go do that, bro? Really, bro? Like, it's that's what we have to kind of bring the balance back. So, you know, um, once I realized that this voice was afraid of judgment, I started noticing kind of how it shows up afterwards. It doesn't really just say one thing and disappear. It it kind of turns into patterns. Um, I kind of like I mentioned, I start replaying conversations over and over, right? Just explaining, kind of like, if you look at Doctor Strange, he's, that just multiple realities all occurring at the same time. In all of those, I'm literally like over explaining myself just in case I was misunderstood and assuming I failed before I even had any concrete evidence. Um, But here's the thing, the other thing is once you start reacting to those patterns, there's another thing is that this voice isn't completely random. It shows up in different modes. Like so if this voice put itself in my head, it had to have, I can control it. If it's there, it's something that I am in control of. So, and just like let's like imagine if you're playing a game, you're at the character selection screen, right? We're going to talk about the different the different types of critics. So basically, you're going to have different character types. This voice is either going to be, um, as we mentioned, either very supportive or very critical. Um, you might recognize a few of these right away. Most of us switch between them depending on the situation, as Ravi mentioned. What's important to notice is that these voices don't disappear, and we're not trying to silence them. It's just basically we don't want them to go on autopilot. We don't want them to direct our actions. So I'm going to do a quick pause because I know I've been talking for a little bit. Ravi, I just want to hear your thoughts on um, what I just spoke about here, and then we can transition into the next topic.
Um, bro, so do you mind if Shivan comes up too? It's like I want to hear his thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I think he had messaged me
Shivan,
earlier though that he was going to be unable to speak though because,
oh, okay, okay,
but
I got
yeah,
you, I got you. Because
okay.
I know it was like we were talking about that too, and it's like certain things you doubt yourself, certain so we had conversation and everything, so that's why I wanted up to the judgment and stuff, and like talk about judgment and all of that. It's like I did a topic a couple of days ago about this about that too, and it's like we have people where
Thank you
they
for the
kind
rose,
of
Lovey.
yeah we how do I put it? I gotta let me formulate what I'm gonna say. um, it affects us to the point where we let it affect us because it's like you. and I was talking telling everyone, it's like you gotta wear it as a coat. When people use it as opinion, not judgment, because when we and that's what I say when we interact with people as well, like an energy, use wear it as a coat, not as we taking this in. Don't let it become part of you. Don't let it become a skin. Let it become a coat.
Right. Exactly. It's something that you have ability to remove and hang up if you don't want.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. Because when you let it become a skin, then it gets absorbed into the pores. It goes into your bloodstream. It hits your heart. It hits you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So I just came up with that, bro. So
that's
I,
amazing. That's perfect.
I
Wear it
just
like
came
a
up with
second
that.
skin. Right. No, that's perfect. That actually, like Shivang says, that actually makes sense because we
Yeah, yeah,
have, and similar to our inner voices, they have different critique types. We have,
yeah.
we have the perfectionist, or we have the protector, or we have the judge, like you said.
Hmm.
The perfectionist is kind of the one who's basically telling you, hey man, if it's not perfect, it's a failure. This one kind of
Yes.
happens when you're deeply invested in something. We kind of start putting our own bars. It raises a bar so high that you start feeling overwhelmed, and it's
Hmm.
like you start to feel that, hey, I can't finish this. And for me, that happens you know when I over edit, overthink, or when I'm doing any of this. Really, it's just something that delays that progress, something that hinders that progress. So the recalibration narrative on this would be, hey, to silence, or not necessarily silence, I keep using that word, but I would recalibrate this and say, hey, I'm still making progress. You know,
Correct.
Progress counts even if it's messy. We
Hmm.
have unorganized
Hmm.
thoughts, but if we can just write them down, that's enough to get us, in the right state of mind. And celebrating those small wins, I think, is the biggest way to combat that perfectionist voice.
Yeah, yeah, and also it's like you know it's kind of like you're telling people, hey, thank you for your opinion, but it's like, but you don't let it bother you because I know it's tough. It takes years. It took me years to get to this point where it doesn't. I don't let it bother me, but it's like, thank you for your opinion, but think about it this way: is this person looking out for you? Are they looking out for themselves? Are they are they um are they putting their insecurities onto you? Do they
Right.
feel your track is different because everybody's different, bro. We might have one destination, but our journey might be so many different roads. I might be on a
Exactly.
different road. You might be on a different road. Shavang, um, Shanti, Mims, Gita, everybody may be on a different road, but you go to that destination. So I hate that when people say, "This is how you do." Yeah, I can give you the cheat code and everything, the game plan, but oh, this is not how you do it. It has to be perfect. It has to be this way. No, you you customize the game plan to that person because you have to know, is this person growing at this pace or at this pace? Because everybody's not going to get to 100% at one point, like at the same time. One person might be
Exactly, and
able
like
to
and
get to
like
that.
Shivang says, there's many paths to success, right? Everybody
Hmm.
says it's not about the destination, it's the journey, right?
Correct. Yeah, and the thing is, it's like it goes back, and I hate to say it like this, bro, but sometimes the parents, the way they let us, they want us to do certain things, and it's like, oh, you have to be a teacher, but they don't try to find out what are you good at. You might be good at a trade,
Exactly.
or they
Because
want
to
to
them
say,
it
oh,
was it was
yeah,
hey, this attributes success if you do one
hmm,
of these
hmm,
three things.
yeah, yeah,
It's just
and
a
the thing is,
given.
it's
Like
like,
this is the formula, like you said, this is the cheat code of life follow it, but that's
Yeah.
it. Don't make any
Yeah.
modifications here and there, blah, blah, blah. Just do this, this, and this, and it's guaranteed to give you success. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
That
And
mentality
the thing
exists a
is,
lot.
does this child really enjoy this? Because it's all about self actualization, self. You have to be able to enjoy something that you do as well. Because a lot of times it's like, yes, I'm making all this money, but I'm depressed. Yes, I'm making all this money, but I'm not happy. Then you see the people that said, to hell with all this shit. I'm just gonna do what I love
Exactly.
to do.
Right.
It's yeah, but yeah.
So,
So,
you know,
sorry, bro. I didn't mean to go on and on and on.
no, 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 you're good. You're good. You know, we mentioned perfectionist, right? That's one of the types of voices that we deal with. The other one is, as you mentioned, kind of like the protector a little bit. Is like, hey, don't even try this. You're gonna hurt yourself. Like that kind of voice that
Correct.
kind of just immediately puts up that roadblock. And
Yes.
this voice kind of thinks it's keeping you safe because it's either a conditioned response or you're it's speaking either from past rejection, embarrassment, or failure. And it usually appears in the form of, hey, anytime I consider stepping back or setting a boundary, it's basically like I'm quitting, when really, as I mentioned earlier, it's just afraid of being judged that I didn't finish. Or you know I would then kind of try to say this by then saying, hey, look, I feel discomfortable. I feel discomfort in this particular moment, but I'm not in a dangerous situation, right? Because it's like discomfort doesn't always mean something bad's about to happen. It's just how do we process this moment of discomfort? Are we going to internalize it? Do we just cast it away like, it's gone? Or do we harbor it in and just go about our day, right? So, and that goes also then to the the judge. This is where we always feel that saying that, there's that song, right? I always feel like somebody's watching me, um, except it's not a music video, right? Cameras aren't real, pressure is always there. Um, this always happens. This voice shows up when we go down the comparison route. It's like um, we become we become. Ah, thanks, Siobhan. We become very hyper aware of how we're coming across, either in what we said or something similar. But the truth is, most people, we have to kind of realize that people are way too busy managing their own inner voice to be watching ours. Like if we feel so self conscious that we're being watched, as the saying goes, you can't always be hyper paranoid, right? I mean, there's certain things that you feel anxiety about. You can either choose to capitalize on it. You could say, I don't like how I'm feeling, but you could just keep doing what you're doing, or you can just let all of these feelings gather up, and then that's when you feel that panic attack. It's almost like because you're trying to then analyze all these scenarios where nothing bad happens to you per se, and then it's like, all right, maybe if I just ignored that voice to begin with, I wouldn't be in this situation. If I didn't realize that what I'm doing is just the same as everybody else, I wouldn't have to go down that line of thought. You know, um, that's what then goes into the replaying mode. You just kind of loop in your mistakes. It's like let's do that play by play of what just happened, almost like a highlight reel. The unfortunate part, though, is that it creates that tether. We mentioned tethers in your live yesterday, buddy. Right? As far as like we have energy siphons in the form of people, but we also
Yes.
then our own voices can create that tether and siphon our
Exactly.
own internal energy. It's basically like it keeps us stuck in the past. You know,
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Because yeah,
um,
it's like it steals that energy from you, and you know, it's kind of like, I think Sean brought it up where he said that it stifles your growth. It's like keep you down, and it doesn't allow you to. It's kind of like they're trying to do the. Sometimes it's people that you love. They try to protect you, and but they don't understand that it's also stifling your growth, like in some
Yes,
aspect.
exactly. It's basically when you see all of these moments in your head that you wish you'd handled differently, it's just, you got to think, not everybody remembers them the same way you did, right? You know, um, and that's the other thing, knowing these different critic types is one thing, but the real work is when these voices show up in real life, either during arguments, after mistakes, when you get anxiety spikes. So let's talk about what recalibration actually looks like in the moment. Um, because what I'm about to say next isn't just strictly theory. These are situations that have happened IRL in conversations, conflict, anxiety, and those moments of reflection that you have afterwards. So, um, usually after an argument, um, my inner voice usually jumps straight to, damn it, bro, you ruined everything. Like, why did you have to say that? Why did you say this? Why did you act this way? Um, and it tries to convince me, or it tried to convince me, that the damage was permanent. Um, Now I try to pause and remind myself that a moment of conflict is not catastrophic. I mean, it's not going to be a domino effect per se. We could just think of any kind of argument. Usually the first thing we try to do is just diffuse it so it doesn't progress. Thank you, Gita. Um, One of the other scenarios would be after overstimulation. Let's say when I get overstimulated, or when I used to get overstimulated in the past, this voice then reaches out and says, "Hey, man, you're too much. You gotta get your shit together. Um, don't be taking a break because you're gonna look weak if you pause." It basically starts treating mental exhaustion like a personal failure. Um, I'm learning to hear that now more as a signal instead of a flaw. Basically saying, "Hey, I'm not broken. I'm just overloaded." Um, Kind of like when you have multiple videos playing on YouTube, you kind of start seeing the buffering, right? I mean, it's like you're still watching this video, but you fail to realize that you've got a limited bandwidth of X whatever amount it could be. And so if you got multiple tabs open that are all trying to play video, it's we call it on here, we call it the wish.com Wi-Fi or the Temu Wi-Fi. We say something like that, uh, but we kind of have to realize that we have to give ourselves a break, that just by stepping back and closing those other tabs is all it takes sometimes to focus on the one that we want to watch. Um, and this goes even further. Go ahead, Ravi. What were you about to say? Sorry.
Oh, I wanted to, yeah, because you know, a lot of people try to keep it consistent, right? And but also you got to do it in a way where it doesn't become like a job, and it causes you burnout, right? Because like I love that thing where you said about the tabs, all those tabs open, because you know sometimes we were like, oh yeah, you know, we're on this road, we're trying to get this done, and we want to make an impact on this app, but it's like, how many things can you do at the same time? You cannot stretch yourself thin, because then that creates burnout. And then burnout, and I always say this, like FedEx, you're the hub. If you're at the hub and something goes wrong at the hub, those planes can't take off, or those trucks can't take off and go to different places, because guess what? We have
They
an
didn't
issue
receive
with,
the order.
Exactly.
there was a
Exactly.
build up. The command
Yeah.
didn't reach or got
Hmm.
distributed, basically, you know?
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to give that little point there,
Yeah.
bro.
You know, and so the same situation happens, like, you know, in, let's say, after you mentioned burnout, but after, let's say, social burnout, you know, that's when the voice comes up and pretty much says, yo, bro, that was a boring topic. Like, you said way too much. You should have just sat there and not even said anything.
Yeah.
Um, you know, now I kind of remind myself that, hey, I made a connection, however small it was. It may not have been received in the way that I thought it was, but you could tell little social cues, you know, people's eyes light up or something, you know.
Hmm.
Doesn't
Hmm.
mean I did something wrong. It's just kind of like, you know, um, you know, reclaiming the narrative is basically you don't want to silence that voice. You just don't want that voice to tell the whole story, right? You're just like, I'm going to listen to you for a little bit, make my own decisions, and then move on from there.
Correct, correct. It's because at the end of the day, it's your decision to make. It's your happiness to have. Because you know, if you base it on someone else's decision and someone else's opinion of what to do or whatever the case might be, it's only a matter of time before you start being unhappy or happy. The emotions start to
Exactly.
step in after a while. So it's just like, you know, that's why you give yourself time and be like, hey, I need time to refocus. I need time to do this. I need time to, okay, it might come with consequences or anything like that, but guess what, either way it's going to come with consequences. It's because if you get total burnout, then it can lead to mental breakdown as well.
Exactly.
You know. Yeah.
And that's what I would ask ask our audience to kind of, you know, once we start noticing these moments, right? We have choices in how we respond. So I would ask the audience to basically, if there's ever a thought, like let's just give it a assume it's a harsh thought. I would say try to rewrite it. You know, um, try to put a different spin on that thought. It doesn't have to be in its raw form or anything like that. Just trying to spin it in a positive direction will put a different perspective on it, right? I mean, like I mentioned earlier, the the whole thing about standing still. If you just reverse the narrative and say still standing, that in itself makes you feel that, hey, I'm not stuck. It just I'm going at my own pace. You know, so little tiny things like that, you know. Um, but yeah, you guys, you know, before we wrap up today, I kind of want to leave you guys with something to carry into the week. Um, you don't have to answer out loud. Just kind of notice what comes up. I mean, what's one sentence that you guys have kind of told yourself that has led to that? Like, hey, I'm just done believing in myself in general. You know, it could be something like, hey, I'm behind, I'm too much, or I should be further by now. You don't have to replace it. Just question it. You know, just analyze why those thoughts came, or you know, what's one boundary that you could basically tell your voice this week that, hey, no, you're not going to go further than that. You know, that might look like, you know, stopping the doom scroll. You know, um, or just, you know, if you're you know, bogged down by work and you really just have to face a timeline. Yeah, it's easier said than done, but logging off earlier tends to help in those situations. Saying no without you know, explaining, or just giving yourself permission to rest. I think that's the thing. Is like rest doesn't always have to be earned, as most people feel that, hey, I can't take a nap. I got to do XYZ things. I got to do all of this. But that 30-minute power nap or however long it is really is enough to keep this voice, just take that dial and turn it down, you know? Because again, we can't silence it, unfortunately. It's always going to be there. It's that reflective voice. Um, it, you know, it's learned its job. That voice is there because, you know, it's a conditioned response, right? It's either from survival, but you don't have to let it write the ending either. You know, you're allowed to pause, edit, and replay it multiple times. You know, I mean, um, wherever you're at today, if you're still showing up, you know, that's more. You're doing more right than you think. Just that act of showing up is is all that we can really ask of us. You know. Um, but yeah, you guys, this is kind of where I'm going to end the segment here tonight. Ravi, if you want to go ahead and chime in on these last few topics, and then we'll go ahead and um, just as a reminder, you guys, this if you want to revisit any part of tonight's conversation, the whole recap is going to be on YouTube. The link is in the bio because I feel like these conversations deserve a place that you can come back to when you need them. So we're going to go ahead and let Ravi say his two bits on this, and then we'll go ahead and close out for today.
Yeah, bro. I think in this aspect is like you know whatchamacallit. I was just I'm trying to process things. Like there's just so many things going on in my head right now. It's like a thing, but in this situation where you feel this thing, you just have to give yourself that time to refocus. And like you said, with the nap and everything, like sometimes you just have to turn off the phone or just put it on do not disturb or something like that because it's you need to have that moment of silence. You need to have that place where you can be able to refocus on you because everything is good, but sometimes technology is beautiful. Sometimes technology is detrimental. It's like so it's kind of like it's kind of like the way the scale. You have the good and the bad, and but in this aspect, it's like if you need, just tell people around you, hey, I need some time to myself. I just need to be away from everything. And I can't really do anything right now. I can't really listen to this right now because my cup is empty. I
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
start to get to where I need to get that cup over pouring again. But it's but you gotta figure out the ways. Sometimes you need to read. Sometimes you just need to listen to music. Sometimes you need to just take a 30-minute nap or something like that.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Ravi, because people are usually afraid to voice that concern that, hey,
Hmm.
I just
Hmm.
need time to process. You know, I'm
Hmm.
feeling overwhelmed. People are usually unafraid or are afraid to mention that because they feel like they're going to hurt the other person's feelings or, you know, it's like, but I could only handle so much, right? We mentioned this yesterday that there's that social bandwidth, there's the energy siphons, there's our own mental voice that brings us down and tethers us down. We are already combating ourselves in addition to now what we have to hear from somebody else. It's like, bro, let me just let me just process my own thoughts and then I'll come back to you in a little bit. That's
Correct.
all it
Correct.
takes, you know?
Yeah, and it's like you would hurt that person's feelings for a couple of minutes, but you can hurt yourself trying to do this
Even
over and
more,
over.
right?
Even
Because it
more.
then becomes
Correct.
introspective and that like you were saying, it's like it hits deep, you know, that coat that
Mhm.
we're unable to then take off. It's now a part of
Correct.
us. It's melded into your entire being.
Yes. Yes. And one advice before I go or before we end, like I said, wear it as a coat, not as a skin.
Very wise words indeed. And yes, I think that's the best way to end this segment. Is that we have to realize that we're not trying to silence these voices. They're always going to be there. We just the purpose of today was to basically talk about how we can metaphorically treat it like a dial on the radio and just literally just make it quiet or seem quieter. And That's honestly the best advice that I would give you guys is just that whenever voices like these appear, just um, try to have like a mock interview with it, almost like, hey, what are you trying to tell me? That's what I would kind of, even though it's yourself, I would try to say, hey, what are you trying to tell me? Because I feel like we're not on the same path, and that's going to make things a lot clearer. So, um, we're going to go ahead and leave it at that for today, you guys. Like I said, there's discussions that we can have at another point, either later today about this topic, or you know, like I said on YouTube, you guys could check this out as well. But yeah, um, this is always a safe space, you guys. You're always more than welcome to reach out to Ravi and myself. Um, we'll do our best to answer the questions without sounding like we're telling you what to do. I think that's the biggest thing that we can always stress is that these aren't how to's necessarily. They're just how to deal. So
Yeah, and
we're gonna, yeah, go ahead, Ravi.
also it's like where we also say that we're here to listen and not judge. We're
We
like
listen and we don't judge. Exactly. That's the
we listen,
best.
we don't judge, and we it's a safe space. In we support each other, and we may look as like twins, but now we're not really twins.
Literally
Well, maybe
twinning.
down maybe somewhere down the line we're family members or something like that. So who knows, right? And
Yeah.
but the thing is, you can come into this room, and we had deep conversation last night. I don't know who saw who was were there, but it's a safe space, and for me, and hey Roma, for me, it's like I. When I saw this dude, I was like, "Nah, and heard him speak. He was like, it's like this, is like my twin." And I was like, "Damn, bro, you look like me too. It's like a twin." So it's like, but I like being around people where that can challenge me mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. Like someone that's gonna and these are amazing conversation right here, because this is conversation that people are afraid to have because of judgment, because of issues that people they may go through, whatever the case might be, and being like, "Oh, why are you there? Why aren't you twerking or something like that?" That's the no. You need to have address certain situation, and don't be afraid to do it. To the people, don't be afraid to say no, because we are definitely afraid to say no. If we are burnout, say no. Say hell
Yeah.
no. I can't do
Hell
this.
no. Just give me some space. That's all it takes is like, put up the
Yeah,
barrier, Boundaries are
yeah.
meant to be respected, People always say that if I tell somebody no, I'm going to unintentionally, cause some disagreements, but that's all it takes
Hmm.
really is just no, no, I'm good.
Yeah,
Not right now.
bro. I gotta thank you for bringing up this topic, because not a lot of people bring up these topics. Like I'll talk about it, but I didn't go in depth like this, and I go I talk about it and everything, but it's like having someone else talk about it. That's the most amazing thing. So I thank you for doing this, and like also, like when I say when it comes to that, like not being able to say no, sometimes people have that mental control over you, and
Agreed.
we're not into slavery anymore. We don't want a mental, physical, emotional, spiritual slavery anymore. So
We don't want to become slaves to ourselves also, right? Because this
correct.
voice that is supposed to be supportive and on our side then basically is like, bro, the hell you doing? That's not what I told you to
Exactly.
do.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, you guys, like I said, so we're gonna go ahead and end this podcast here today. This will be up on YouTube, and we'll so Ravi, I'll reach out to you after this, and we can collaborate on next week's topic as well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll go from there.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely, brother. Yeah.
All right, you
All right,
guys,
guys.
thank
Have a
you for
good one.
checking in today. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. And
This one.
this is Darth and Ravi signing off.
All right. Take care. Take care, guys. Have a good day.